we're here at Moores Creek battlefield, and this was a very unusual battle for the American Revolution. For one, it was Americans versus Americans. This was militia versus militia, Loyalists against Patriots. And there are other battles like that, but this is unusual, especially because it's so early in the war. It was in 1776, right at the beginning of the war, and there were no British troops involved. And another is that it involved the charge of Scottish clansmen with their broadswords. And this battle kept North Carolina clear of the British for 4 years. So when the American Revolution was starting, Josiah Martin was the royal governor of North Carolina. But when this battle takes place, he's not in North Carolina, he's on a ship off the coast, on a British ship, because the Patriot movement had gotten powerful enough that he was forced out of office effectively. But he wanted to raise a force of militia to help the crown, to win back North Carolina, and he thinks there's enough loyalists in the area to do it. People are promising him that thousands can be raised. Sir Henry Clinton is leading an expedition to capture Charleston, South Carolina. And so Martin orders that militia be raised a bit inland and march to the coast to meet Clinton. There's two major groups of loyalists that end up here. Both of them seem pretty strange when you think about it, why they would choose the Loyalist cause. The first were Scottish immigrants, Scottish Highlanders. Many of them had moved to America after the failed Jacobite uprising, where they tried to restore a Stuart to the throne instead of King George. And so it seems strange that they would be fighting on the side of the British, since they, just a few decades before, had been fighting against the British, and that's why they ended up in America. The other group that are here are called the Regulators. This was a movement from about 10 years before that was against the colonial government in North Carolina, especially. And it actually turned into armed conflict where people are resisting the government. A lot of historians trace this as one of the predecessors for the American Revolution. It's the same types of issues that people were having with the War with the Regulation that ended up in the American Revolution. But the Regulators here were fighting on the British side. And one of the reasons why this might have been is that they were bought over. The Highlanders were promised 200 acres of land and 20 years of tax freedom. If they joined to serve in the Royal Highland Immigrant Regiment, they would get all this monetary benefits. And so that might have been one of the big reasons why they supported the British. So, 3,500 Loyalists gathered, mostly Scots. Some of the Regulator leaders had promised that they could get 5,000 people to come. Only about 300 actually showed up. So these are mostly Scottish people, and these aren't just people of Scottish ancestry. They're playing bagpipes, they're wearing tartans, they're speaking Gaelic. This is a very Scottish-looking force. The commander is Donald MacDonald. He's a veteran of the Battle of Culloden and the Battle of Bunker Hill. And so they're going to try to march to the coast and fight their way out against the Patriots, who pretty much control all of North Carolina. So many desert along the way. They decide that this is not for them. When they started marching, they had already lost a lot of forces. They were probably down to 1,400 to 1,600. By the time they actually engaged in battle, it may have been as low as 800 actually fighting. They're also pretty badly armed. Only about 500 had firearms. A lot of the others are carrying broadswords, claymores, dirks, not firearms, but swords. So the Patriots hurried to intercept this British force. There's a lot of maneuverings back and forth as the Loyalists try to find a way to the coast without having to fight the Patriots. But eventually, the two forces meet at the Widow Moore's Bridge. This bridge here is a replica of that Moores Creek Bridge. 1,050 Patriots were here, and more were hurrying on their way to reinforce them. So this was a good position for the Patriots. The creek at the time was 5 feet deep, about 50 feet wide. The road coming up to this position ran along marshy ground, so it's not like you could just go around this position easily. Entrenchments were built on the east side of the creek, and that was the direction the British were coming from. The problem was then they would have the creek at their backs, so they ended up deciding to move to the other side of the creek where there's replica entrenchments today. They had two small cannon, a 3-pounder named Mother Covington, and a smaller swivel gun named Mother Covington's Daughter. They had the bridge here, and they pulled up half of its planks to try to stop the Loyalist advance. They use those to reinforce the entrenchments, and then the stringers, which are the pieces that the planks nail onto, they grease them so to make it slippery so that the British would have difficulty crossing. So as the Loyalists come into this area, an officer comes up and demands the Patriots surrender. They of course refuse, but one of the things he's there for is to scout the positions. He doesn't go to the far side of the creek, and at this point there's still a lot of Patriots on the east side. So he reports back that they're positioned here with the creek to their back. There's some debate among the Loyalist commanders. MacDonald was sick, so he is not in command anymore. Some of the older officers are recommending caution, but eventually they decide to attack the next morning to try to strike the Patriots, who they think are vulnerable because they have this narrow bridge to retreat across. Now the Patriots have warning that the battle's coming because someone deserts. A Loyalist soldier comes and warns them of the plan, so they are ready and waiting. At 2 a.m. on the morning of February 27th, 1776, the Scottish troops march out. They march for 5 hours, covering the 6 miles to get here. It's dark, it's marshy, they have a lot of trouble finding their way. Leading the attack will be 80 hand-picked men. They're wearing kilts, they're carrying claymores and dirks, and they're marching to the music of bagpipes. So just as the sun is just barely starting to rise, they arrive at the clearing in front of the bridge. They are challenged by a Patriot sentry. So they end up replying in Gaelic and end up shooting at the sentries. What this does is it lets the Patriots know that they're coming. They don't charge across. They instead start this little firefight back and forth, which means that the Patriots are all warned and are all ready in their positions. Notwithstanding, the hand-picked vanguard from the Scottish force moves forward across the bridge. They think the Patriots have probably retreated because they see these empty entrenchments, so they head out. So they see the planks are removed, but they give 3 cheers and charge forward across it. Some of them fell into the water, but most of them were able to make it across. So as they cross this bridge and move up the road, the Patriots held their fire until the Scots were just 30 paces away, and then they let them have it, poured a devastating fire into them. A lot of the Scots fall. The commander, who's leading the charge, he's hit with 20 bullets. The Scottish charge was broken. They're not able to continue to press forward against this 1,000 Patriots with just 80 men carrying swords. So they run back towards this bridge and try to make it across. Again, most of the planks are pulled up, so they're falling into the water, and the Patriots are continuing to shoot at them. The rest of the Loyalist force decides not to attack as they see this vanguard has just been utterly, completely defeated. But the Patriots don't sit still. They grab those planks that they had pulled off the bridge, and they come down here quickly, put them back into place, and rush across to pursue the Loyalists. The Scots dissolve into the countryside. They're an undisciplined force, unorganized force. Their morale just completely collapses, and so they retreat. The Patriot militia spend several days pursuing them. They end up capturing 850 of them, arresting them, letting them go on parole, and sending some of the ringleaders to Philadelphia. They also go to a lot of the Loyalist homes, take their weapons, find the stores that they had. They end up capturing 1,500 muskets, 300 rifles, and $15,000 in gold. That's at that time, it's worth way, way more now. So at the battle, only 30 Loyalists are killed and wounded, some more likely drowned, and only 1 Patriot was killed and another wounded. This battle was small, but it had important consequences because it really destroyed the Loyalist movement in North Carolina. After this battle, the Loyalists were not interested in fighting for the crown because they remembered what happened here at Moores Creek Bridge. So even when Cornwallis, years later, comes marching up through North Carolina, when they talk with him, they wish him well, but they don't fight for him. And so that's a big help for the Patriots, that there's not Loyalists fighting in great numbers from North Carolina.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also visit www.discerninghistory.com for more videos and other resources.